Okay, if you want to learn to fly FPV drones like the DJI Avata 2 or the Neo or other drones like this Speedy Bee in full manual mode, also known as Acro mode, I'm going to show you how to do that because I learned to do it in about a month following a simple set of instructions which I will take you through from start to finish. The parts of it are not my idea. I took it from another video, and if I can find that video I will link it in the description, but I want to take you through some simple steps from start to finish. So first thing assumes that you have, and by the way I should add that I'm not a fancy YouTuber. I don't have a fancy studio with lights and stuff. I have got a light but yeah, I don't make a lot of videos. I just make them occasionally when I feel like I've got something to say, something to show you. So yeah, this kind of assumes that you already have either the Neo or the Avata 2 or the Avata 1, I think will do this, or the original DJI FPV drone, also known as the Flying Potato, I think they call it. You will also need the goggles, DJI goggles, and I think various different ones will work, and an FPV controller. I have some big daft sticks, as you can see, attached to mine. That's because I also have a disability, and that affects my hands. So don't let that worry you. You know, I'm only telling you because if I can do it with my hands the way they are, you can learn how to fly FPV as well. So where do we need to start? Like I say, I'm not a fancy YouTuber with lots of equipment. I've just got my laptop here with my scripts on it, and so I'm going to start reading from that and go through the step by step and superimpose some things on the screen as well. So on top of the drone equipment that I've already mentioned, you're also going to need access to a computer, either a Mac or a PC probably, although you may be able to play on a console as well. And that's to give you access to be able to play a simulator, something that we'll come back to in a moment. Okay, so step one is going to be something you need to do to your controller. And I'm going to assume that if you're coming from a normal DJI drone, and when I say a normal, I'm talking about like maybe a Mini or a Mavic or one of the air drones. And the type of drone where you control it by, if you have your controller like this, and you push on your right stick, the drone flies forward. You pull it back, the drone flies backwards. You push it to the left, and the drone will fly left, sort of goes, just sideways like that, and right like that. And on your left stick, you control altitude with this stick, upwards, downwards, and then you can sort of look left and look right with that stick there like that. Assuming that you're coming from that kind of control setup, the next step is going to be fairly easy. And I'm going to base it on, let's say that you already know how to fly like that. So the first thing you're going to need to do for step one is, with this type of controller, with the DJI FPV remote, is to make an adjustment at the back. If you open up the back of it, you'll see I've stuck a label on there that says R and S. The R and the S stand for resistance and spring, and you need to adjust that so that basically you can get it however you like it really, but I have it so that there's no spring at all. If I move the stick back like that, it will stay there. If I move it forward, it will stay there as well. It only springs side to side, but forwards and backwards, it stays where I put it. And it's very easy to move, but it's not so easy that it's just flopping about all over the place. Well, it does a little bit. But, some people have this really, so it's really just sort of like, proper, like a wet piece of spaghetti, I don't like it like that. I have it so that it will pretty much stay where it is, but it's easy to move. And that's what you need to do by adjusting those two springs at the back in there. There are more videos about that on YouTube. Once you've done that, what I would say is continue for a little while to fly either your Avata or your Neo, or whichever drone you're playing with for now. Keep flying it normally using the goggles and all the rest of it with the normal mode. So this is forwards, this is backwards, this is left and right, and this is to control your altitude. But with your stick, now that your stick isn't going to spring back to the middle, you're going to have to get used to controlling the altitude manually. So if you leave it like that, obviously it's going to drop down. If you push it forward and leave it there, it's going to keep going upwards. It's not going to spring back to the centre. You're going to have to get used to controlling that. And that's the first step, is you're kind of you're taking that responsibility away from the drone itself to hold its altitude. So you need to get used to it. Okay, that is pretty much step one. So now you've got used to sort of flying normally, how you're used to flying at the moment, and controlling your altitude manually. The next thing you're going to need to do is get used to pressing this pause button here. This is on the FPV controller. It's the top left button there, and that's the emergency button. This is going to save you when you go into manual mode if you start to panic, because as you're going to see in a little while, the controls are completely different in manual mode. And sometimes to begin with, you might be like, oh, well, if I've got a, an emergency, you need to, that's your emergency button there. So what I'm going to say to you now is continue to fly normally for a little while, but just for no reason whatsoever, just randomly hit that button and get used to this is what's going to stop the drone dead in its, well, almost dead in its tracks, depends on how fast you're going. That's just going to stop you, and get used to it. So get yourself some practice, flying with the normal controls that you're used to, left stick floppy, pressing your emergency button, just get used to that for a little while. But now, that's in the real world. In the virtual world, you just go and get yourself a simulator. And the one I used, I've bought a couple of them in the past. About maybe 6 months ago, I bought one called DRL, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I put it down quite quickly because I just couldn't do it. I don't know whether it was the level I was playing or trying to play. I just wasn't very good at it at all, and so I didn't play it for very long. But then I bought another one called Uncrashed, and that's the one I'm going to recommend. I don't make anything from this, so there's no. You go watch the videos if you want. There's lots of videos about these things on YouTube, so go and do your own research for if you want. But the way I learned manual mode was with a simulator called Uncrashed, and you can get that on Steam. And if you don't know what Steam is, it's like a games platform. Just go to let me just check what the website's called. I think it's steampowered.com. Yeah, steampowered.com. It's free to download Steam, and then once you've got it on your computer, you can basically just download various different games and play them with your own controllers and things like that on a Mac or a PC. So do a search for Uncrashed, and if you download that, it costs about £12, and then you can plug the USB cable into your FPV controller, plug the other end into your Mac, and now you can play the simulator with this controller. And obviously the controls that you're using, like in normal DJI mode, the ones we've already discussed that you're going to continue with just for now, they're not going to work. You're going to be going straight into manual mode. So let's talk about that, how the controls differ. So we've already discussed that on your right stick, on a normal drone, that's forwards, that's backwards, that's fly sideways, that's fly sideways. That is look left, that is look right, and that is go upwards, that is go downwards. 90%, well, 75% of that changes now. This is still to look left and right, okay? This, though, is throttle. So this is like putting the foot on the gas when if you're driving a car, that's like go fast, go slow, all right? This stick now is your pitch and roll. What that means is you push forward on this stick and you're going to look down. The drone's going to tilt down like that, Okay, so on your right stick forward, drone tilts down. Right stick back, drone tilts up. Okay, so you can use a combination of that, tilt down and go fast to dive downwards, pull back and give it some power, and you're going to go upwards. Okay, this stick is now roll left and right. Okay, so you go left, the drone is going to go like this. Go right, the drone is going to go like that. Okay, but the other thing that's important to mention about this is when you do that in normal DJI mode and you go like that to fly left and let go of the stick, it's going to go straight back to center because of the spring on it. With this, in manual mode, it's not going to do that. If you go right for a while and you get the drone on that angle and then you let the stick recenter itself, the drone isn't going to go back to the center. It's going to continue to fly like that, okay? To get the drone to go back horizontal again like that, you're going to have to go left like this, okay? So those are the things that you're going to have to get used to. And there are lots of intricacies with it, which I'm not going to try and describe everything that's going to happen if you go like a little bit on this stick and a little bit on that stick. Just to begin with, use what I've told you there. in uncrashed and just go into a big open space above some of the levels and just get used to flying around, maybe doing a bit of rolling, a bit of ducking and diving up and down like that, using the controls that I've talked about, and just get used to it that way. The main thing to talk about with the simulator, though, is that although you'll probably quite quickly learn the muscle memory of how to control the drone using the sticks in this mode, and you'll be able to fly around in that computer virtual world, ducking, diving, chasing, going through gaps and things like that. Nothing can prepare you for going into the real world and realizing, the fact if you basically dive down with your proper drone in the real world and you hit the floor, you're going to smash it, and you can't simulate that in the game. Because in the game, you're going to smash it on the floor and you're going to hit a button and you'll be back in the air again. So I would say just go high up in the air to begin with, get used to ducking and diving, and when you go into the real world, do the same. Go up quite high, do some diving a little bit, go up a little bit, do some rolly stuff, and if you need to, hit the pause button, because that's what's going to save you in the real life and stop you from hitting the floor. Okay, the next thing I need to show you in this demonstration is the way to actually enable manual mode, because on the FPV controller, you have this button here, which controls whether you are in normal mode, sport mode, or manual mode. And flicking between the two top ones will actually switch the mode, but unless you enable it, you can't actually go into manual mode. So the way you need to enable that is by inside the goggles. If you go to the menu on the right and go down to settings, go down to the controller and into remote controller, and then go across to, actually you need to go down to, on button customization first of all, you need to enable manual mode down here, because normally it is just sport mode. Okay, so switch that on by going to enabling manual mode there. All right, click on confirm. It's going to give you a warning there about how you need to adjust your the spring and resistance in the controller, which we've already discussed. Okay, so now that that's selected, we need to also go across and talk. Sorry, let's just get off there. Go across to the gain and expel menu. What you're going to see in here by default, this button is on. What that means is, when you first go into manual mode, if you've got this switched on, it's going to prevent the drone from flipping over, and that's like a safety mechanism. And I would say try it for a little while, but what you're probably going to quite quickly find is the stuff that you're doing in the simulator, you just can't do it with this switched on. Now, I'm not going to advise you to just switch it off straight away and go without that safety feature switched off like that. I would say, like I say, give it a try, see how you get along with it, but I would be more inclined to quite quickly disable that altogether, and if you really need to, use the emergency button on the top left shoulder of your controller that we've already discussed. But now, with that settings like that, with that disabled, and with the button customization set to custom mode being in manual mode down there, you're ready to go. Basically, you're ready to go in the real world, and when you press the mode button on your FPV controller here, you're going to be able to go between normal mode, sport mode, and if you want to, you can go into manual mode.